Good morning, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video that we have here for you today. It's a recent one that we took at the Saratoga Historical National Park. Um, they have a beautiful entrance to the park.
Hi, I would like to introduce you to Sue Fetzer, who represents the women of the 1st New Hampshire. The women played an important role during the Revolution and the battles of Saratoga, especially helping and supporting out the men in camp. And I'm going to let Sue tell you a little bit about the role of camp followers and women.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The camp followers were critically important, doing everything that needed to be done to support the men. Primarily it was cooking, cleaning, sewing, repairing uniforms, and if they brought any children, they would have to do that. Now today we're doing our big meal is always at noon. They call that nooning, but it was the biggest meal of the day because it was the most important meal and it's also healthier. So today we're cooking a pork roast because it's a very important day in the Saratoga time period. And you can see that we've also cooked root vegetables. Now what the women were told was, and what they did, was to empty out their root cellars at home and bring the potatoes, the carrots, the onions, the root vegetables, and everybody would put them together for the vegetable meal. We also have cornbread, which we've already made. It's on the table, ready for our nooning meal. And today we're going to have some apple crisp. And the apple crisp is here in our Dutch oven. They use Dutch ovens primarily, and you can see the apple crisp has got a nice crisp topping to it. So it's almost ready to come off. And our pork is almost ready for our noon meal. Now the other thing that the women would do would be to make their own clothing. They would make the men's uniforms, repair the uniforms. They would make sure that there was enough food for all the men as they brought it. And of course, help to set up the tents and to repair the items that the men would need. So yes, women were behind the scenes, but very important. And the other thing we have here on the fire today is some gravy for our pork. Of course, everybody needs gravy on their pork, so we have a pot of gravy that we made. So my friend Karen is dishing out the vegetables, and you can see there are root vegetables there. Potatoes, yes, they had potatoes during the Revolution. There are carrots, very popular. Of course, corn was a staple of every meal. There was cornbread, corn and vegetables, and cornbread would be eaten pretty much for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner because it was a very easy crop to grow, and it was a very easy crop to carry. You could carry dry corn or fresh corn. So for the 1st New Hampshire, sometimes we have a lot of people to feed, sometimes we don't have many people to feed, and our menu changes. So we eat a lot of beef, a lot of chicken, pork on occasion, and always have some sort of vegetable for our meal, along with our cornbread. Thank you. So let me introduce you to Miss Kitty, who is repairing and sewing a hem on one of her new gowns.
Hi,
Hi, Kitty.
I'm just like all the other women. We're multitaskers. I was helping cook earlier with the pork roast, and I grew some of the vegetables we're going to have for dinner, and I am now mending a gown so I can wear it tomorrow. And I've already mended a coat.
Good.
Oh, and this is something people don't really know about. This is called a chatelaine. And in it, I have a case for my needles, a case for my pins, a tape measure, a pin cushion, a pencil for marking, a thread cutter, and scissors. And it's nothing more than the back end of a fork bent over, and I hook it on my apron strings around my waist, so I always have my sewing with me, my sewing kit, like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here are some of the foods that we're going to be offering for our big noon meal. We made cornbread over the fire. You'll notice that in the cornbread there's actually real corn. We have our fresh vegetables, also from the garden, and they would have been picked from the gardens. We've got some dip for the gardens. Obviously they would have sour cream. And this is pumpkin that we actually cooked today from a real pumpkin. Plenty of water is needed for the men because it gets very hot out in the field. And of course we have our veggies ready to be served. Now, one of the things you may have noticed is that all the women have caps on. Now, this was very important during the period of the Revolution because obviously women couldn't wash their hair very often. And it was a little dirty, so we kept caps on. And it was very important, especially when you were preparing your food. So every woman had a cap and at least one apron. The apron served to carry things, including wood, and sometimes children, and also food like apples. And it also served to wipe your hands off with. And it would serve to hot mitts. So if a bowl was particularly hot, you could use your apron to lift that bowl up. So many of the things that the women wore, including their long skirts, were either made of linen or wool because those were the least likely to catch on fire. During the morning when the grass was wet, the bottoms of the skirts would very nicely get damp, and as you saw, women were working by the fire, damp linen or wool would not be as apt to catch fire. Fire among women was the second cause of death during the Revolutionary period. Obviously, the first cause would be childbirth. So we have to be very careful with our long petticoats, also known as skirts today. So our skirts and our aprons, and of course, women always had a modesty top because it was not considered appropriate to show much skin or many arms. So thank you very much for listening about the women.
Thank you.
Timmerman again, and we're going to show you the 1st New Hampshire doing some basic drill maneuvers. It's going to start with the company in a column marching towards us. They're going to go from a column into a line, and if we have space, we'll go back into a column and they'll do a wheel. So again, these are basic maneuvers that every regiment would have to perform.
Company, prepare to go from column into line by the oblique. Sections break off. Front. Right. Press your line to the right. Company, prepare to go from line into column by the oblique. Sections break off. Press. Good. Get the yellow front. Front. Good. Press the line. Company, take care, halt.
Hold on, wait 1 second.
Wheel them and come back. Company, order, fire on. In motion. No, you can do one motion. In one motion.
Yeah,